So everyone says Vietnam is cheap. Sure, you can pay 5 times less rent than in the States, but what about the everyday stuff like groceries? Can you actually keep your beloved lifestyle without living off instant noodles? I mean, that's what really matters. I put together our usual grocery list: proteins, greens, fruits, snacks. Same list in the US, same list in Vietnam. Let's see how the numbers hit and what it actually feels like to shop in Vietnam. Before we start though, please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the Elite Kid channel for a lot more on living abroad as an expat or a nomad. So let's take a closer look at the actual grocery list. It's not our full grocery list, I don't want this to be like a 2-hour video, but it's a fairly complete one. We like to keep fit, so we generally eat natural without going too crazy, meaning no processed foods, but not chasing any organic, wholesome yoga pants BS either. I selected a range of items that make up our daily diet: chicken, breast, and thighs, salmon, prawns, eggs. We eat a lot of eggs. That's protein. Also canned tuna. For veggies, it's cucumbers, tomatoes, avocados, spinach, kale, lettuce, whatever leafy greens we can get our hands on. For fruit, it's bananas, of course, mangoes, and a bunch of other random fruit. For snacks, it's generally nuts, like usually cashews, and then for carbs we eat rice, pasta, and quinoa. We also drink lots of coffee, but coffee is a little more complicated because we're snobby connoisseurs and just order our light roasted beans online, so we can grind them ourselves and make fancy coffee while looking at the rest of the world like they're peasants. So I'm not gonna include coffee. So for the States, I'm using 3 stores to get my data from, which is QFC, a Washington State slightly upscale chain, Fred Meyer, and Costco. I'll use QFC and Fred Meyer as the main 2 price sources. Whereas in most cities in Vietnam, you generally have 3 options. Some sort of a large supermarket, convenience stores like Moon Milk or Winmart, and the wet market, which there are of course always plenty of in Vietnam. It depends on what you're buying. I'm gonna take the supermarket as the main source, but I'll bring up other options along the way. Of course, in the States you have way more companies in the food industry, so you have a lot more options than in just about any other country out there. So keep that in mind. In Vietnam, you typically have access to the same thing, the same foods that you have in the US, but with less options per food item. However, the actual variety of many foods like fish or fruit is sometimes much more diverse in Vietnam. This is how we did it, by the way. So in the US, you need a car in most places. Even if you're a tourist, you need to either rent one or get a friend to loan you one. In Vietnam, most people take bikes, but we like to stock up on groceries, so a bike doesn't do. What we do is we take a grab taxi to the big supermarket, load up all the groceries in huge bags, and get another taxi back. Runs us about $4 to $5 per ride, and we don't really have to worry about groceries for another 10 days or so. So here is how it's done, and before you continue watching, please remember that $1 is about 25 to 26,000 dong, although I'll do my best to convert the prices for you. So having said that, let's take a look. Proteins. Let's start with salmon. In the US, Washington State specifically, QFC has steelhead trout at $16.99 a pound. Let's take a look at Fred Meyer. Closer to $10.99 for Atlantic salmon. And Costco got Atlantic salmon at $12.50 a pound. Of course, it's Washington, so you generally have a lot more options for salmon, but I'm mostly talking about regular Atlantic salmon or steelhead trout, which are about the same in quality and price. In Vietnam, you'll find locally farmed Atlantic salmon at Mega or Latte Mart for about 499 dong per kilo, which ends up being about 9.30 per pound. We generally steam it for lunch or dinner together with some quinoa or rice or whatnot, but Masha also cures it herself, which goes great with breakfast. But let's go back to the US. We're gonna take a look at chicken now. I'll spare you the 20-hour flights each time I have to go to a different continent. So chicken. In the States, chicken breast runs around $4.49 to $7.99 per pound. In QFC, $2.49 was the lowest I found at Fred Meyer, and Costco is $3.39 per pound, though that's for boneless chicken. Thighs are $3.79 per pound in QFC, $2.79 at Fred Meyer, and $2.03 at Costco. Meanwhile, in Da Nang, around 43,000 dong per kilo, which ends up being about 80 cents per pound for thighs, whereas breasts it's 99,000 dong per kilo, which makes it about $1.84 per pound for breasts. Oh yeah, and for chicken here, there's another option though. If you go to the wet market, you can get village chicken. This is what chicken is actually supposed to look like. Yes, yellow like that. This is what those supermarket birds descended from. This option actually is a little more expensive, but oh my god, it's worth it, you guys, seriously. The broth from this chicken, I wish I could record taste. You can even go one step further. You can go to the market, find a lady with a bunch of live chickens in a cage, pick one, and ask the lady to take care of it for you. Though we only did that once because I think that left Masha traumatized. See, I spent half my childhood in the countryside with my grandma, and we had chickens, so that was an everyday thing for me, but not for a city girl like Masha. Anyway, next. Shrimp, or rather prawns. American grocery stores love charging you about $10.99 to $18.99 per pound for raw shrimp. In Da Nang, in Mega, it's local shrimp priced from 203 to 286,000 dong per kilo, which translates to about 378 or 532 per pound, depending on size. But if you walk into a wet market, or rather right into a wet market, you can buy live shrimp for about 250,000 dong per pound. Alive, jumping, like they seriously jump out of your bag. This is how fresh they are.
Не издевайся над животными, дай им спокойно умереть. Иди сюда.
Which can be a little unnerving, of course. Eggs. In the States, you can pay anywhere between $3.49 and $10.99 a dozen, depending on whether the chicken had a therapist. In Vietnam, regular supermarket eggs are about 80 cents to $1.27 a dozen, except they don't really have dozens, they sell them in tens, but close enough. The downside, quality can be inconsistent. Sometimes you crack one open and it doesn't look good, but you can test it. Dunk them in the water. If it floats, bad. Or you can just buy CP brand and you're safe. Their quality is really consistent. Still test them, of course, anywhere, but I don't think I've ever had a bad one from these guys. Here you have options. You can get a huge box with like 5 pallets of 30 eggs each for about 465,000 dong for the entire thing. It's also possible to get farmed eggs here. There are a few options around Da Nang with supposedly organic eggs or meat, but the prices will approach US prices. I've also heard it's possible to get eggs or meat directly from a farm around here, and if you know a good location for that, please write it in the comments. It's better than going to an overpriced store for this. Oh yeah, and canned tuna. I'm guessing it will be more or less the same, so $1.50 per can in the States, which you can actually get on sale for $1 a pop though, and $1.50 to $2 in Vietnam depending on where you buy. So, like I said, about the same. Greens and veggies. Avocados in the US are now practically a luxury item. $1.41 per piece in Costco, $1.25 in Freddy's, between $1.99 and $2.79 each in QFC, sometimes more. In Vietnam, about 22 to 65,000 dong, which is 80 cents to 250 each. Oh wait, no wait, not each. Per kilo. Sure, they're not going to be as creamy as Haas, but pretty close and often really huge. Spinach, kale, lettuce. In the States, bags of greens will run you about $2.69 to $5.99. Heads of lettuce are $2.59. Variety, of course, is a big thing here, I can't deny that. I'm not even going to attempt to classify produce by category here. In Da Nang, bunches of fresh greens are often about $1 to $2 per kilo, and they actually have a bunch of greens that I have no idea what they are. Vietnam does love their leafy greens, that's for sure. They usually have kale here, but you'll never run out of something leafy in this country. But things like lettuce are generally a little more expensive here, so a head of lettuce will cost about the same. 62,000 dong or $2.35 each. Cucumbers. The US loves charging you $1 to $1.50 each in a regular store. Fred Meyer got them about for 79 cents each, and Costco got them for $7.37 for 1.5 pounds. In Vietnam, you can get a whole kilo for about 20 to 25,000 dong, which is like 35 cents to 45 cents per pound. And that's like 5 or 6 cucumbers. Not $1 each. $1 each bad. Tomatoes are the same story. $1.99 per pound for regular ones and $3.99 to $4.99 for a package of cherry tomatoes in the States. In Da Nang, it's 31,000 dong, or roughly $1.50 for a kilogram of regular tomatoes and 52,000 or around $2 for a package of cherry tomatoes. Mushrooms. In Vietnam, there is a huge variety of mushrooms which often will be less known to a person from the US or from any Western countries, like the king oyster mushroom or the cordyceps mushroom, which is just sold in a supermarket. Many are quite tasty though. However, one thing that I can generally say about just about anywhere in Asia is that shiitake mushrooms will be far cheaper at 34,000 dong or $1.49 for 200 grams. And button mushrooms will, on the other hand, be generally more expensive, 52,000 to 74,000 dong or $1.99 to $2.80 per 150 to 200 gram package. In Costco, shiitake mushrooms are a whopping $11 for 12 ounces. so 340 grams, but the button mushrooms are only $2.49 per 8 ounces in Fred Meyer, so this part is actually a bit cheaper in the States. Fruits. This is where Vietnam really shines. First of all, this is a tropical country, of course, and you can get fruits that you probably never even heard of. Second, much of it grows here. So pretty much any local fruit will be dirt cheap in comparison to the States. Bananas go for about 59 cents to 69 cents per pound in the States, or 39,000 dong or 148 per whole kilo in Da Nang, which actually ends up being more expensive. And this is where I admit defeat and say that, well, no life is more expensive in Asia. But wait, these are Dole bananas, that's not what we're looking for. The truth is that there is a whole bunch of bananas out here, and while you can get the same kind of bananas as in the States, there are many more local varieties which I personally find to be tastier and cheaper. So like for example, this bunch, which has got to be way over a kilo, cost me only 30,000 dong from my landlord. And if I'm not too lazy to go to the wet market, the asking price for bananas here is 20,000 dong per kilo, or about 76 cents, which makes them about 37 cents a pound. But there is a whole bunch of other fruit out there. Let's take a look at mangoes, for example. In the US, it's generally really easy. There is the regular red-green mango for like $2 to $2.50 a pop, and then there's the yellow mango for about the same, looks like. Well, how do I even put this? First of all, it's Asia, and there are so many varieties of mangoes here that I don't even remember them all. They're all different, they taste different, they cost different. I wish you could record taste so you could try this while watching my YouTube video, but unfortunately we don't have technology like that yet. I wish you could feel the difference for yourself, but I'll just leave this here. Price for all kinds of mangoes ranges between $2 per kilo and $2 per unit. And of course, it's much cheaper at the wet market, where mangoes run for about 10 to 50,000 dong per kilo, so 35 cents to $2 most of the time. Of course, it's heavily dependent on the variety, the location, and the vendor. And for all fruit, I actually prefer getting it at the wet markets because it is cheaper and often better than in the stores. And then there's fruit here that you can't even dream about back in the States. Mangosteen, probably the tastiest thing that I've ever had in my life, to be honest. This costs about 65 to 85,000 dong per kilo, but it heavily depends on the season. But yeah, this fruit is amazingly tasty. It's so tasty that I'll admit that I've probably eaten about 3 of my body weights of it at this point. There's also custard apple or sweet sop, my second favorite, dragon fruit, rambutan, durian. This thing, I don't know what this thing is, and this, I don't know what this is either. In the States, these are all qualified as exotic fruits, and you'll generally find them shrink-wrapped like museum artifacts in Whole Foods or something. Actually, I don't know, can I even find mangosteen or durian in US stores? Let me check Costco. Nope. That's a negative. So I'm guessing you'd have to really go to Whole Foods or maybe some Asian markets, which we have in Seattle, but you definitely have to look around for that. And it probably ain't gonna be cheap. Snacks and extras. Cashews. Costco or Freddy's are about $7 to $8 a pound generally. Vietnam's gonna be about $6 to $7 at the convenience store next door, but at the farmer's market you can get freshly roasted cashews for just about $3.79 per pound. Just have to look around. And you can even order them online on Lazada or Shopee at around $8 per kilo or just under $4 per pound, so about the same at the wet market. Finally, we got carbs like rice, pasta, or quinoa. Vietnam has been growing rice for about 10,000 years or so you can imagine how many varieties there are out here, and the cost can vary a lot because of that. You can buy huge bags of rice at Mega for like 17 to 22,000 dong per kilo, whereas in the States the cheapest option will be Costco, of course, although you can look around Asian stores if you have any in your area. I'm guessing it will be cheaper there. Although there will be many other options in the States like Thai jasmine rice or basmati. In Vietnam, the latter two will be more expensive, but local rice can go for about 30 cents a pound if you buy it at the wet market. We also used to buy organic rice from our landlord, whose family actually farms it, and they go for about $9 per 5 kilo or roughly 10-pound bag. Pasta is about the same. You can get Barilla brand in Vietnam for roughly $2.50 per package, which is roughly the same as in the US, and the general cost for pasta is comparable. Sometimes it's even cheaper in the US actually. Quinoa is about $4.59 per pound in the States and roughly $6.50 per pound in Vietnam, so slightly more expensive. Some other stuff that we like isn't always available. Vietnam doesn't always win with things things like olives or capers, although you can get them. Generally though, they are all imported and niche, so more expensive. Although sometimes if you get lucky you can find some good stuff, like these Kalamata olives in Mega went for $14 for this huge 4+ pound jar, which was awesome, but again, it's not that frequent. Look at that escargot though. Cheese is also limited. You won't find 20 kinds of cheddar. You have to go to specialized stores in Vietnam for that. Like, there is a store run by Norwegian expats in Hoi An that sells a lot of different kinds of cheese and stuff like pastrami, which is really good. But what you will find in regular stores in Vietnam is buckwheat, which is a Russian staple food. Quite yummy boiled and enjoyed with milk or butter. I kinda like that Vietnam has lots of American and Russian made stuff in stores. Not a lot of countries out there have that available. But anyway, so what's the verdict? Well, let's calculate. Chicken breast and thighs, let's get like 4 kilograms. Salmon, let's get 2 kilo. Prawns, the same. Eggs, we're gonna get 60 pieces. This is all roughly for a week or so for 2 people. Canned tuna, we're gonna get 5 cans. Cucumbers, 3 kilo, because my wife goes through them like crazy. Tomatoes, 2 packages cherry, plus 1 kilo normal ones. Avocados, 4 pieces, spinach, kale, lettuce, whatever leafy greens we can get our hands on, half a kilo, bananas, 2 kilo, mangoes or some other fruit, 1 kilo, and nuts, half a kilo or roughly 1 pound. Rice, 1 kilo or roughly 2 pounds, pasta, a couple of packages, and quinoa, 1 pound or half a kilo. In the US, this grocery list comes out to around $193. In Da Nang, around 106 bucks, so about half. Are there trade-offs? Yes, of course, there always are. You'll miss variety, like I said, in some things like cheese or specialty items. But in exchange, you'll get cheaper meat, super fresh seafood, and very fresh and absurdly cheap fruit. And this is partially why Vietnam keeps pulling expats in. It's not just the rent. It's the fact that your daily life, the food that you actually eat, feels lighter on your wallet, often healthier for your body, and better for your sanity due to the previous 2 factors. If you're curious about what day-to-day life is like in Vietnam, do check out my video on exactly that. You can click on it here, or if it doesn't work, I've left a link in the description. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the Elite Kid channel for a lot more information on living abroad as an expat or a nomad. Thank you all very much for watching, stay nomad, and see you in the next one.